Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the BN weathering series on this covered hopper. In this video we're going to be finishing up cleaning the logos on the BN hopper. We're going to start doing some of the rust, and then we're going to start working on the graffiti and some other little effects here in this chapter, so we'll see how much we can get done. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so before I move on to the opposite side to clean the lettering off, I'm just letting this side kind of dry up a little bit. I've put some new paint on there to touch up areas, and I'm letting all the alcohol and everything dry off. I don't want to set this car back down on this side just in case that I start scraping paint off. So I'm just letting everything dry back up on this side. Again, to reiterate, there's the clean side now. All the lettering is cleaned back off and it's looking really good. But I got fresh paint in certain areas where I had to touch things up, so I'm just, to pass the time, trying to be more efficient here. I'm going to go ahead and start working on some of the roof techniques. What I've been doing up here so far is I put a little bit of that burnt umber around the hatch area and on this side, so it's pretty much wrapped up. And to demonstrate my technique here, I just take my liner brush with a little bit of burnt umber, and I like to just take this and I start by moving it underneath the roof walk like this. And it's important you get in all these little nooks and crannies underneath the roof, on the ends and everything else. You don't want any clean spots showing through, so it's very important. So I just take my liner brush and basically tuck a lot of this paint underneath the roof walk like this, and after I've done that, then basically I can come in and I kind of will stretch the paint back out like this, going in a streaking motion to model the way the rain would take grime and everything. It would wash it down. So I want to pull the paint away from the areas that I've applied it, the heavier layers underneath the walkway, and just stretch that out a little bit. I'm not worried about this roof walk. We're going to take care of that separately, so if I get paint on this, it's fine. I'll just clean all this off with a Q-tip when we're done. Now, after I've applied that burnt umber, I'm going to go ahead and come back with a little bit of raw sienna to mix things up a little bit and add more of a fresher rust color. The prototypes, these BN covered hoppers, get a really interesting rust color. It's bright yellow, a lot of good rust tones on the roof. And I don't have an exact picture of this particular prototype's roof, but I've seen enough pictures doing a couple of these so far that they all pretty much weather pretty consistently. Usually a lot of grain spillage, a lot of good grain spillage. The roof walks stay pretty oxidized. You'll get replacement roof walk panels, which I'm going to replicate here in a minute. But for now, I just want to replicate this rust color. You can see all the burnt umber is drying up pretty quickly here. But I'm going to go ahead and switch to my my raw sienna, and again, this is water mixable oil. I'm taking this in a pretty frayed out fan brush here. Citadel number 2, and I'm just going to start applying this paint in a very blotchy, random manner, and this is what I want. Okay, I don't want it to be perfect streaks. I'm just working this paint in random little areas. Now when this dries up, it's going to be a little bit more subtle, okay, but that's what we want. We don't want this too bright. It's going to dry up. It's going to be a lot more subtle on the prototype, so we're just working this in over top the fresh burnt umber paint so that the two kind of mix together here. And I'm just working in the paint. After I apply it, I'm going to try to keep this relatively blotchy. I'm going to go in and just pat this paint like this and work it back out and just blend everything very gently with my brush. And I'm going to repeat this process for the entire roof section here, including in between the roof walk and the hatch. Okay, so at this point I've finished the paint work on the roof for the most part. I've cleaned off the roof walks, and now I'm going to be applying a whitewash of titanium white. Here, got the paint right here. This is the titanium white by Winsor & Newton. I'm going to be applying just a little bit of this to the roof walk for a nice oxidized metal effect. And this is very simple and easy to do. All you got to do is just very carefully brush the paint, work it into the walkways very gently, and you do just a random kind of motion like this in certain areas, just like that, to make it look a little bit more weathered and aged. But I'm going to repeat this step here for each of the roof walks. If you get hard lines or everything looks kind of crappy, you can always blend everything back together with a Q-tip, or just work the paint into the roof walk with the brush a little bit more. But in this case, I'm just going for a random blotchy effect here. And here's the car in its current state. I've been working on this car officially now for 4 hours, actually 5. I started at 12 o'clock this afternoon, and it's now pretty late, so I'm getting pretty happy with the results here though. You can see we got the opposite side, the prototype side, now done. We got the nice bright white lettering. I cleaned off the patches, and I've also finished up the roof block. So I did the whitewash and pitting effect on the roof to make it look oxidized, and then I added a little bit of rust with the burnt umber here and there to add some discoloration in certain areas. Add a little bit more realism, but the rust is looking really good on the roof, all that fresh rust. Everything's coming along here. The next thing I did off camera was I cleaned off the ends. You'll remember that the prototype has cleaned ends. Apparently they took a power washer, sprayed the end slope, or the end top sheet off, for whatever reason cleaned it off, and that would explain also why there's these little green spots that are discolored where they sprayed apparently a lot of that weathering off. And I replicated that on my model as well by taking a Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol, cleaning off a little spot, and then blending things kind of back together with some light washes of burnt umber oil with a fine tip brush. Same on this end here. So that's a cool little effect, and that's replicating the prototype again. So the next steps here are going to basically be going in, doing the graffiti, adding all the details now. We got the majority of the car body work done, and we're ready to start doing all that detail work, all the stuff that really will basically tie this model together here. Okay, so we got the majority of the hard stuff done, and now we can do all the easy fun stuff. And we're going to be doing rust streaks, graffiti, finishing the patching, adding safety stripes, that kind of thing. The first step here I want to do is add some streaking to the logos here. My prototype has some heavily streaked BN logos, the large BN logo, and I'm going to be replicating this with my fine tip brush, and I'm again going to be using my water mixable Winsor & Newton titanium white oil paint. And so what I like to do here is I just take a little bit on my brush, I come over to the model, and I just first apply a little bit of this paint just in random little areas like this, just where I want to start streaking it. Okay, so I'll just kind of spread that around. It doesn't have to be perfect, just like this. Now what I'll start doing, we've gotten that paint in the area that we need, and if we zoom in here, what I'm going to do with a wet brush, I'm going to start streaking it down, and you can start in whatever spot you like. I'm going to be trying to follow the prototype photo as best I can here. But this is very easy to do as long as you make sure your brush is wet, and we just start streaking that paint down like this. Just in select little areas, just like this. Start streaking it. This is obviously something you see on a lot of covered hoppers, a lot of box cars, a lot of older roads with these custom painted logos. You'll see this kind of effect, and this is a very easy way to replicate it. You can also use a large fan brush and a little bit of thinner to do this. It's another easy way of doing this, but I really want the defined streaks here because the streaks on my prototype are very fine. So I'm doing this freehand with my fine tip brush. Here are the BN logos now, one of them anyway, after I've done the streaking effect. You can see it looks very good, working all that in with a brush. If you want to tighten things up or clean some areas up, you can use a Q-tip with a little bit of alcohol and just very gently work some of that paint in. I did that here and there to kind of blend everything together, and it all looks really good. So the next step here, I'm going to start painting the graffiti. Prototype, the main prototype side that I'm working with has a couple small tags, relatively easy tags I'm going to model, and I'm going to be using a combination of acrylic paint work, and I'm going to be using a paint pen to do the finer tags. So the first one, this one here, I've traced a basic outline with a pencil, and I'm going to be using a very fine tip Atlas brush. I'm going to dip it in a little bit of paint, and I'm just basically going to start painting all of these in. And again, I painted this outline to help me just guide my brush a little bit, but I'm just basically going to do a quick outline of everything. The graffiti is not perfect on this prototype, so I'm not treating this, you know, as perfect graffiti. I'm just doing a very rough outline of this, and I'll just gradually blend everything together, blend the colors in as I go. Now I'm going to start painting in the smaller tags with my Jelly Roll ink pen, and I just basically start at one corner at a time like this and start just freehanding everything just like this. Sometimes you got to work a little slowly with this. Sometimes that ink has a tendency to kind of just crawl out. I'm not looking for perfect tags here anyway. If they're not exactly perfect out of the box, it's okay. I'm just doing a rough outline of each one of these little letters, just copying them as best as I can here. Here is the car. I just finished the graffiti. On the graffiti tag here itself, I tried to make it look like it was a little bit more aged by modeling some of the streaking kind of coming down from the paint. Tried to make it look like it was kind of crappy paint that's just starting to streak, as you can see. So that all looks really good, and that's all based off the photos. And then I have the smaller tags here, which are just starting to bleed a little bit too. Got the other tags in the corner here, and then we got all that bleaching coming out of the BN logo. So everything's really kind of tying together at this point on this model. It's starting to look a lot more like the prototype now. I really like the bright defined white lettering on this, and then that graffiti and the minor patching. It really looks good. Now onto the opposite side. I pieced all this together using various photos of various BN covered hoppers, and I couldn't decide between a single car that had a set of graffiti tags that I liked, so I picked between two different prototypes. So these are different tags from different cars, basically two examples in particular. So I got the fine tags up here that I drew on, and I got an Ichabod tag, classic Ichabod tag, and then this tag here as well, and then some other little small graffiti tags, a little bit of graffiti on the bay there as well. But it's all looking really good. So now what we need to start doing is some of the detail work on the sides, like little bits of rust pitting, rust streaking, defined little streaks of rust here and there, weathering some of this graffiti up just a little bit, and then we'll start adding the safety striping. But we're going to be doing it all on this side, obviously staying with the prototype side here. So I'll go ahead and start by starting to paint some of the little rust dots and everything. Alright guys, so that'll do it for this chapter. In part 3 we'll really start to finish this car up with powder work. We'll start doing some finer detail work, various things like that just here and there. We'll start doing some of the more detailed stuff like rust pits, rust scratches, that kind of thing that the prototype has, and I'll show you how to do that in part 3 coming up. So thanks for watching for now guys. Stay tuned for next time.